Hello and welcome to this overview. Quick overview of the year-end reports. Now, how do we get there? You scroll to the right, extreme right, you find reports. Get out of there. Find reports and then click year-end reports to end up here. Now, we've got about 17 classifications of year-end reports. Now, let's check on something briefly. Among these year-end reports, you'll find that each one of them has got some information at the top. So please take time to read that. It's a guide, helps you here and there, gives you some information about the report, and you recap on the knowledge that you already have. So we'll start with the tax return extract. Now, this one basically contains information that we should fill on the tax return. And in the UK, the tax return for the sole trader is SA103 full. Now, this information is the same as what we find on the summarized profit and loss account and the balance sheet. The only difference is that we have named the boxes according to what you find on the tax return itself. So in box 15, we should be filling in that figure, 16, that figure, and so on and so forth. So basically, you scroll down to access the different boxes on the tax return. And for the balance sheet section, they are boxes 83 up to 99, and those are the figures, just to make your work easier. Now, the next report we're looking at is the profit and loss account. Now, this one is, of course, different from the dashboard. You remember we have a dashboard. Let's see the dashboard. Let's have a quick comparison. The dashboard is a summarized profit and loss account, small as you may see, quite summarized. And then we got the balance sheet section below. It's quite summarized as well, giving you just a quick overview of the business. That's all. But then the year-end reports are a bit more detailed. They are a bit more detailed depending on which one you are looking at. So let's go to the final profit and loss account. So this one shows all that detail. We've got figures for most of the boxes. We've got net profit, and there's a bit of a guide at the bottom here. And apparently it compares the most recent year with the previous year. And in addition to that, it shows you the change amount and percentage changes. No need for any computations. Once you do the double entry perfectly, all the rest is done for you. All you need to do is to click print, and you either extract a PDF or it goes to an actual printer. Like this one is connected to a brother printer, or you select down here. So don't know, this is the drop down arrow, this one, and you say you want to save as a PDF. And yeah, there's a preview for the PDF, and after that you click this PDF button and it's saved. That's it. So let's close this, and we close this profit and loss as well. Now next we're going to look at the balance sheet. Shows the assets, liabilities, and equity in the business. Remember, each report has got a question mark at the top, which has got a guide. It computes the return on capital employed, the current ratio, and quick assets ratio. At the top, it compares the most recent year with the previous year, shows the changes in amount and the percentage changes. So on the actual device, you should be able to pinch. But then my settings here are not very good. So, and then of course there's some guide at the bottom there regarding the information contained on the balance sheet. Now next we'll look at, this is report, should be B3, performance ratios. Apparently most of what is contained here is at the top of the profit and loss account and the balance sheet, but then just for the sake of it. So these figures are also computed for you, comparing the most recent year with the previous year and showing percentage changes and so on, making life easier, saving time, utilizing technology. Let's see at the top here. This is the profitability, liquidity, and performance ratios. That's report B3. Now, next to that, now maybe before we continue, we forgot to look at the year-end reports checklist, but anyway, it should have been presented earlier on. While there isn't a lot of difference really. We're looking at now the reports in among the financial statements and notes. That's B1, B2, B3. We're left with B4. After that, we look at year-end adjustments. There's C1, C2, and C3. Then we look at VAT reports. Then we look at wage reports. Then we look at income reports. We look at expense reports. We look at fixed asset reports. We look at stock reports, trade data reports, bank reports, cash reports, other current asset reports, trade creditor reports, long-term liability reports, other current liability reports, and equity reports. And the aim of all this is to generate self-explanatory reports, because these reports should be available for 6 years after the end of the financial year. And it's possible the person who prepared the reports is not available to explain in case of a tax inspection. So make them self-explanatory and file. When the tax authorities or even the auditors come, just hand them the file and everything is stipulated, both in summary and sufficient detail. So looking at the last report in this section, which is the notes to financial statements. Now, this one is also a big report. It's a big report. That is report B4. It shows figures for the most recent year, previous year. Now, remember there's a guide on this, change amount and percentage change. Now, essentially, these notes, they list the balances which are summed to generate the figures we find on the balance sheet. Sorry, let's go back to B4. Okay, they list the balances which are summed to get figures found on the profit and loss account and the balance sheet. For example, on the profit and loss account, note 1, you find 85,394. How is it generated? It comes from these 3 accounts. That's it. And if you want any finer detail, then you go to the respective accounts. So those are the notes. It's from note 1 up to note 29. It goes up to note 21. Fairly big report, and remember, you can pinch. Okay, now the next report, we're now going to look at the year-end adjustments. So year-end adjustments, we start with the final trial balance. Now this final trial balance, okay, let's start the other way around. We start with C3. Now C3 is a listing of trial balances for the 4 quarters of the financial year, starting with the balances brought forward. So this is first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and then the grand total, the year-end balance before any adjustments. So it lists all of them for all the accounts which were active during the financial year. Accounts without balances are not expected to be seen here because they are a waste of time. There's no point. And then, of course, if there is any difference in the respective quarters, then it's exposed here as well. Difference to investigate, that's a 0 and so on. So far, so good. Okay, so that is the year-end comparative trial balance. And it also gives an opportunity to compare how the business is performing in the respective quarters. For example, you look at incomes. How are we doing as far as incomes? You look at, okay, the first account is the sales takings account. Okay, how did it do? First quarter 19,000, second is 19,777, third is 32. Big improvement. And then there's a fall in the fourth quarter. What happened? What went wrong? Those are the issues that an accountant would need to know, probably even the business owner. So some comparison, that's why we call it the comparative trial balance. Now next we're going to look at report the year-end journals. Now year-end journals, these are basically year-end adjustments. We record year-end adjustments using journals, and this one indicates which account was debited, which account was credited, and the respective amounts. Now it's a list of year-end adjustments which are done without source documents. So the tax people would want to know what is it that was entered that doesn't have source documents. And then of course at the bottom we should be able to see if there is any double entry error exposed. That's if there is no zero. If there's a zero, then that's fine. And then after that we look at the final trial balance. Now this final trial balance is a merge between C3, which is the year-end comparative trial balance, where we get the balances in the first column, and then the middle column is for year-end adjustments, which come from the year-end journals. Now, through the guide on this report, you get a little bit of information about year-end adjustments. It could be income in advance, payments in advance, accruals, and so on and so forth. It's a sizable list. So we look at the year-end balances, what adjustment was made, and what is the final balance. The final balance here is what ends up on report B4. B4 are the notes to financial statements. And of course from B4 they end up on the final profit and loss account, final balance sheet, the performance ratios, and of course the tax return. But ultimately they end up on B4, which is the notes to the financial statements. So all accounts with balances are listed here, and at the bottom we can see if there is an error to be investigated. Now by design we don't expect to see any errors at the end. We don't expect to see any errors. There could be rounding errors or otherwise, but that's how it should be. So this is the final trial balance, and that brings us to the end of this session, and thank you.